everybody, welcome back to another episode of Garage Time TV here. I am Marshall, and today we're going to see if we can get our 1952 GMC pickup truck to run for the first time in almost 50 years. Yes, 50 years. This truck was last registered in 1976, and that was it. The plate still has a tag on it, and it's been sitting ever since. So since we inherited this as our new project and new build series, so if you're new to the channel, make sure you follow this series and hit that subscribe button and the notification so you know when new episodes come out. You're going to want to follow along on this. But today, the big thing is to see if we can get this thing running. Now, it's been sitting, again, for 48, almost 50 years here. And I did go ahead and pull the plugs and spray a bunch of PB Blast and stuff down in there and on some of the linkages and things to try and give us a little bit of a head start a couple days ago. So a few episodes ago, the first episode was when we revealed this thing, reorganized the garage to make it happen. And then last episode was clearing out all the raccoon house and nastiness that was in it. And it was really, really gross. We ended up pulling almost about 30 to 40 pounds of stuff out of this truck from animals living in it. So I have little possible hopes to get this thing running, but let's get started. First things first, what we've got here is the factory 228 cubic inch, 3.7 liter straight six engine that came from the factory. Still got the GMC valve cover on it, oil bath air cleaner, single barrel carburetor, super bare bone stock, cheap as you can get. This was like the lowest option. But a couple things I do notice is that we've got all the spark plugs. Again, I pulled those out a couple days ago and sprayed a ton of PB Blaster in there to try and give us a good head start on that. So we're going to see if we can actually get this thing to turn. But everything is here. We've got our distributor, we've got our coil, we've got the air cleaner still on it, which gives me hope that stuff didn't fall down into our intake. Carburetor's on it. We still have our metal fuel line. It looks like this is the one thing that makes me a little nervous, is that our exhaust is full missing, just the bottom of the manifold, and that's it. But we do have a generator, we have our voltage regulator, and then we have our monster starter down there, and oil canister here for the oil filter. But one thing I did notice is that down here we have a glass style fuel filter pump combo, which I thought was pretty interesting, again with another metal line feeding into that. So I thought it's pretty cool. And then a metal line for our vacuum advance. So it looks like everything is here. Radiator cap is still in it. Looks like kind of relatively new hoses. Those clamps have definitely been, I believe those are not original clamps, but correct me if I'm wrong. Those don't look original, but we've got the fan, radiators in it. I have no idea if there's anything in it. Haven't checked the oil, haven't checked the radiator, haven't done any of that. So let's start with the oil, and then we'll jump into some other stuff. So when I went to go pick this truck up, it was sitting in the middle of like a lot, basically. And I tried just a quick move of the fan while we were trying to buy it, looking at potentially buying it, and it didn't really move. But again, it was just a quick test, so hopefully our PB Blast will help us out, because I have a strong suspicion the thing is stiff. But let's see what we got here on our dipstick. Wow, it's actually really clean. You can see right there, it looks like someone just changed the oil and then left it. It is a little dark, probably just from age, but that's right above the full mark, and I can read where it says low. That's how clean this oil is. Let's do one more, just because we've been moving this thing around. It could have bumped up onto the stick, but let's get a little bit better reading here. Yeah, look at that. Perfect. Can't beat that. And I think the cold is helping us a little bit, adding to the viscosity of it, but it's pretty thick stuff in there. So that's a good sign. We have oil all the way up to the full mark, which means our crank and our bearings and everything have been submerged in oil. Relatively submerged in oil, I guess. Let's take a look at our radiator here. Looks like we still have our original cap here. Atlas. It's kind of rubbed off. What is that, 7 pounds? Is that what that says? 7 pounds radiator. Locking kind. Oh, that's a little stiff.
That's what she said.
Anybody home? Hello? I don't see anything up to the top there. Well, I guess that's kind of a good thing, because if it was water, it would possibly have cracked the block, because we've had the past few weeks have been pretty cold, dropped below freezing a few times, so hopefully there's nothing else in there. But there's nothing on the floor, so I think it's got the bottom radiator hose on it, because we got our top, and we do have our bottom rad hose there. It looks like a metal pipe with two rubber fittings, one on the bottom there, right there. It curves up, and then we have another rubber fitting there. So, all right, well, nothing in it. So let's pull our cap, take a look at our points. We don't have any plug wires, so we probably have to go pick some up if this thing turns, but let's take a look under our cap too. So of course, this will have a points system for spark, being from the 50s. But a GM HEI would be pretty nice, because then you don't have to really worry about it. As long as you've got 9.5 volts or more, basically, you can run. Wow, actually, look at the inside of that cap. That's like clean. I mean, it's got corrosion on the contacts, don't get me wrong, but that's really clean. So underneath that nice looking cap, our rotor looks okay. Definitely got some corrosion on the end of the rotor right there. The condenser looks new. The points look new. There's no way these are original points. But what happens is when you break this ground signal, because this goes to ground, when you break this signal and those points open, it breaks the and that's what causes a spark. So when it does that, it continually moves, opens, close, that's what sends off spark. And on the side of underneath the rotor, there's little bumps there. Try not to block the light. Get you guys a little bit better here. So on the side of the rotor, there's little tabs, like an octagon or a hexagon shape, because it's a 6-cylinder. But every time it comes across one of those bumps, it'll open the points, and that's what sends your spark. So it's pretty cool. But these have definitely been replaced. I mean, these are no way are these original, and I don't know what cylinder it's pointing at. But we do know that our firing order is 153624. It's pretty standard. The best way to remember it is 15 is too young, 36 is too old, 24 is just right. That's an easy way to remember your firing order. 1 5, so 1 5 3 6 2 4. Easy way to remember firing order. So when we get our plugs into our cap, the cap does look like replaced too. It's made in USA. Would you look at that right there in the bottom middle? Made in the USA. Awesome. Well, it's finally the moment of truth. Place your bets now if this thing is going to turn or not. I'm really hoping that PB Blast, worked in our favor, but it is about 35 degrees today, and that doesn't help us. If it was warm, the metal would be a little bit more relaxed. So the cold metal shrinks up, so hopefully that won't be too much of a hindrance for us, but we're going to try and get our hands on this fan and see if we can get this thing turned. Please turn, please turn, please turn, please turn. All right, here we go. Oh. I don't think this is gonna turn. Okay. We can do it, we can do it, we can do it. It's not working that way. Let's try this way. Well, in better news, the generator turns, so that's, a plus. I think we're gonna take a second here.
A few moments later.
All right, we're not turning. We have a couple options. The inspection cover on the bottom is missing on the transmission, so we can actually see the flywheel, which means we could get a crowbar on there and try and turn it tooth by tooth and see if that'll do it. But I don't know, you can't use a crowbar, but those flywheel tools, pretty snazzy. That'd make that a lot easier. Plus I'm not really feeling crawling on the 30-degree ground right now. So our other option is to put it in gear and rock it back and forth and see if the weight of the car or the transmission will help us break through whatever ridge or rust that's in the cylinder. I think that's probably a little bit better guess, just because I am a one-man show. I'd like to use physics to help me out. So before we do all that, let's pull the plugs and take a look inside those cylinders. They'll be damp just from the PB Blast that I sprayed in there, but I've got a little cheapy Amazon special camera scope thing and that'll kind of give us an idea of what we're working with. Kind of nervous to look at it, considering the exhaust is completely missing. And all of the animals that were living in this thing possibly could have gone up into the manifold. So, let's break out the camera, see what these cylinders look like. So we're gonna start in order. I had to close the garage door. Like I said, it's about 35 degrees. It's supposed to get a little bit colder this afternoon. So we've got our heater going, so if you hear that whirring in the background, that's what that sound is. But I've already broken these all loose, and they all did come out pretty simply. And again, I sprayed down all the PD Blast, but they should come out okay by hand. And we're gonna take them out in order and take a look at them. So this is number one. Not bad, just carbon. Gap looks okay. Definitely running rich, that's for sure. Number two, about the same story. Carboned up pretty good. A little bit of debris on there, but again, running rich. Number three, same story. Number four, again, pretty much the same. Number five is a little full of dirt down in there. I don't know if a dirt dauber tried to make a house, but there's all sorts of dirt down in the spark plug hole, so some of it is kind of on there, but other than that, looks almost identical. Number six looks, again, identical. Just a little bit of debris on them, buildup of something. But I did notice they're all the same spark plug brand. They're all Champions. Champion spark plugs, J11Y. Now off the top of my head, I have no idea what that means. I know they have different temperature ratings and different things like that. So if you happen to know what that is right off the top of your head, just put it down in the comments down below. But I'd have to Google that, and I'm just not going to do that this very moment. But they are all the same, and they look really, really even and consistent. Again, they all look really even, carboned up severely, but all the same spark plug. So they didn't charge out one or two, so at least we don't have some sort of like firing issue, at least at the time we didn't. But they're all pretty much the same, which is kind of good. Tells me a good healthy engine, which is what we need. If only we can get it to spin. So let's put this into gear. I don't think the shifter on the column works. I messed with it a little bit and it just doesn't do anything. So we're gonna have to grab the linkages of the steering column on that side, see if we can put it into first gear, and then see if we can rock it back and forth without going through the garage, because that would be bad. Don't do that. And if we do, we can't tell the wife, but let's just not have to get to that point. Since we know that we're just fighting that scaling that we just saw, we're going to probably spray some more PB Blast in there to really give us some more to work on. Those couple cylinders that were all the way up, I didn't see a whole lot of PB Blast still in there, meaning that I soaked through, bypassed the rings. Those rings, I'm sure, are just stuck to the pistons. But we've got it in gear already. Let's spray some more of the old PB Blast in it, and give them some rocking motion, and we'll probably be here for a little bit doing that, trying to see if we can get this thing to work loose. But I really don't want to go fight teeth on a flywheel right now.
1 hour later.
Well, we've been fighting this thing for at least 30, 45 minutes. And I mean, we're able to get it in gear, but it is not even the smallest amount budging. So we put it back in neutral, and if I can't even get it to move with the whole car, there's no way I'm going to get it to move on the flywheel, especially because those teeth are like angled. So we're only going to get so much of a grip on the flywheel with a crowbar without that proper like flywheel turning tool thing. And we just cannot get any movement out of this. So I think what we're going to have to do is, I think we're going to have to pull the radiator. I mean, we're going to have to do it eventually anyway. So I think we're going to have to pull the radiator to get down to the crank bolt to see if that'll give us any advantage. is if we can get a socket on there and a cheater bar, we can kind of get a little bit more leverage and try and see if that'll help us out. Luckily the radiator supposedly is empty, so we'll pull that out. The one thing I'm not looking forward to is these rusty bolts. They are scary looking. So hopefully they'll play nice. If they break off, they break off. You know, it's unfortunate, but we're gonna replace a lot of the hardware anyway as we go through this restoration. So from what I could tell, there's some sort of like crank twist thing. Just let me show you. So you can see why it's gonna be a little bit of a challenge to get a cheater bar down there with a fan and whatever that thing is. You can kind of see on the crank there's like a two-piece thing on there, but it looks like it bolts onto the front of the crank. So I don't know what that's supposed to be for, because the crank has its own groove and then there's like that plate in front. Makes me think, you know, that looks like a manual start, to be honest. Something like you would put something through the front. Let's see if we can get down here. Let me grab a light. Yeah, there's a little hole right there, but that's not right in line with the crank. I wonder if you can remove this plate. See those 3 bolts, 1, 2, 3. Remove that plate. That way we don't have to pull the radiator, and see if we can get to it that way. That'd be kind of nice. Oh, we don't have to do all that labor. Let's mess with these first and see if we can get those off and get us access to the crank. That'd be pretty nice, actually. Make it way easier. The only challenge is if we do get onto it and we do get something onto the crank, we're gonna have to have like a severe extension to come out this way to then use a cheater bar. A lot of chance for slipping and rounding off a bolt, which would not be fun. But let's just start here and see what we can come up with. If we look down here, the crank is kind of in the middle bottom of where the radiator is. So even if we got that bottom access plate off, we'd have to be coming up to the crank. So I'm kind of glad we aren't just going to go that route, but let's just pull this thing out. We can take off the radiator hose on the top, probably just disconnect one of these clamps here and the whole thing should come out. We've got a couple bolts here, and there's some on the front here. Got to remove, look like probably 1/2 inch. Got one here, and those 2 are missing. Perfect, makes our job a little easier. Holy moly, that thing is finally out. I really only thought it was like 6 or 10 bolts. And all of them came out, which is great, except for the very last one. It's always the last one that wants to snap off. But all the rest came out, which is great. So we've got our front cover and the top. We had a nice dirt dauber nest built underneath there. But it's out. And we had a little minor, don't know if you can really see it, spill on the ground because there was stuff in it. But I did notice that when we look in the pan, besides all the brown awfulness, I believe there's a little bit of green in there. So I really hope that this block never froze, because that would suck. And that would be bad. So we're just gonna push it back underneath there and not look at it. But hey, we've got room to work now. Looking down on this crank, you can see it's got what looks like a hand start thing on the front, like an adapter. So you would put like a rod through the grill, I guess, and it would go in here and you would crank it by hand, and when it would fire, it was slanted this way so it wouldn't get kickback and break your wrist. So this looks like it's kind of riveted on, I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get this off. I thought this was bolts, you know, like 7/16 bolts or something. But that's rivet heads. So I don't know if we're going to get this thing off. We can try. We'll get some pry behind here and see. But when I try and dig down in there, all I feel is splined teeth for the piece to fit in. So I don't know if this is really going to do us any favor. But at least we've got these edges here, and this is a flat one facing straight up. So worst case, we could probably get something there and start tapping on it. Maybe our air hammer or something like that. I mean, that's like worst case scenario. And see if we can get it to turn a little bit that way. We're getting there. We cut the heater hoses. Radiator hoses are all cut. And so we'll see what that thing is. I'll do some prying. See if it'll come off. I mean, I'm not gonna, you know, count my chickens before they hatch. All right, so we still have no movement. Even with the air hammer trying to get on that piece on the bottom there, it's still not wanting to move. I noticed that there was something off about it, like it had rubber on it, and then I realized, oh yeah, harmonic balancer. That's not gonna come apart. So I'm glad I didn't destroy that thing. But we went on some of the tabs on the front and we just cannot get any movement out of this thing. I even put it back in gear and rocked it some more. I think what we're gonna have to do is run up to the parts store. There's an Advance right around the corner from us. We're probably gonna have to pick up some Marvel Mystery Oil and some other sort of, I don't know, ATF maybe. I don't know, if you've got a stuck engine, what tricks do you use to unstick engines? Because this sucker is locked up tighter than Fort Knox. So let's head to the store. I'm gonna come back, fill this thing up with ATF, probably grab some lunch because it's, you know, a freckle past a hair, and which means it's lunchtime. So we're gonna eat some food, come back, let that set, probably do some other stuff around the house, around the shop. Probably desperately need to pick up some too, to be honest, but we're not gonna do that and just pretend we did. So let's go take care of that, dump some stuff back in here, and then let it sit for a while and see if we have any luck later.
Many hours later.
So it's definitely been several hours and we haven't had any luck. We put mystery oil, ATF, we've rocked it back and forth some more. We tried to move that crank with an air hammer. I mean, we cannot get this thing to move at all. So we've escalated some things. So we're taking Elsa, our Subaru powered Volkswagen, and gonna see if we can drag it a little bit to see if it'll break out of the ring ridge that it's in. I've got it in gear, and I hope it's not reverse because I just pulled a lever, so I think it's not reverse. I want it to be like third, or something like that, like a strong gear, so it'll pop loose, but I'm just hoping to give it just a little jerk. But these are 2-inch straps. They do have some give because they're not chains. So we've got them hooked up here underneath the straight axle in the front. So from the straight axle in the front, we've got tow hooks on the front underside that have been welded by some previous owner, you know, Volkswagen things. And so we've got those hooked on there. We're letting the bus warm up. It hasn't ran for about a week or so, so we're letting that warm up, get the temp, and then we'll give it some quick motions. But what I want to do is mark the crank with a Sharpie, a straight up line. After we do these couple jerks, we can, you know, release the slack off this, drop it and push it back in theory, and try it again if it doesn't move, and see if we can get some good movements at it with some force. But I want to mark it, that way in case it does move, we know it's starting to move, and we start making some progress. So we do have it in gear. We just manually lifted the gears over there to make it happen. So let me mark this, get y'all set up, and then we'll see how it goes. Cross your fingers that we don't break anything. So I went inside to wrap up for the night just after that literally 2-second ago clip. But I went inside and getting ready to shower and eat and all that good, wonderful stuff to wrap up the night. And I was like, you know what? There's something else that I can do. And I just, you know, I just got to think about it. So it took me a moment, and then I had a mind-blowing moment that there's supposed to be a T-handle that turns this engine by hand. So I wonder if I get some cheater bar, crowbar, breaker bar, something in there, and use that as leverage, if that'll give us an opportunity to turn this thing. So this is what I set up. I came back out here, hooked up better lighting, but I got a crowbar in here, and I've got a ratchet strap to our side support for our fender. You know, 1/2-inch bolts, those are gonna do pretty good. And I've got lots of tension on this. I mean, you can, you know, play a tune on the banjo with that thing. But I want you to notice that the line is not straight up anymore. It used to be right about here. We've turned probably about 5 degrees with adding the tension and hitting it with, you know, our persuader here. So if we keep doing that, we should be able to get this to turn more and more and more and add tension on the ratchet strap. The only trick is when we get level, we're gonna have to like switch over to the other side and pull this way. I don't know, we're gonna have to figure that out. Because you can only pull one way, because if you go the other way, it's gonna slide right off. So we're gonna have to figure that out. But let's see if we can get this moving. But this is actually starting to move after fighting this thing all day long. So let me set you guys up, probably down here somewhere, so you can actually see it start moving. Well, if it wants to keep playing nice, that is. I cannot believe that this thing turns over. We got it 3 full revolutions with it working this way. We were able to use a combination of our smaller breaker bar and our longer one to get around the water pump here. But we got that thing to spin over 3 times and it's gotten easier every single time. So let's take a look. Holy moly, I think that worked. If you look in here, basically right back where we started, but you can see a lot of the ATF's been pushed out. Okay, number 6. Yeah, we've gotten a lot of the fluid out. You can see it really soaking down towards the starter. That wasn't like that earlier. Down by the distributor, out around the oil filter housing too. So I think what we'll do is we'll continue to spray fluid in there. Keep cranking this by hand, really getting it working, which means that we can then see if we can use the starter to get this thing to roll. If the starter's any good, we're going to have to find that out too. I'm not too hopeful considering all the wires are taken off from the solenoid up at the top. We've got a pedal inside and it pushes that little button right there on top with a spring and engages the starter. I'm not too hopeful since, you know, the battery is disconnected and main power, which is right here, is disconnected too. So who knows? Maybe the starter went bad and that's why they parked it. You know, that could be a real thing too. So super exciting, but what I think I'm gonna do here is I'm just gonna keep spraying, keep turning, keep spraying, keep turning, get this thing nice and loose, and then I'm gonna go eat some dinner because it's getting late. Well, we've been slowly turning the crank over again and again and again, and it's starting to get much easier to turn. And so it in fact got really easy to turn. So I was just curious to make sure that everything was moving because I feel like there should be significant amounts of fluid. I mean, we put basically 2 quarts of ATF and Marvel Mystery Oil in it, and I feel like there should be a lot more out with the pistons pushing it all out. So what I did is I got this bent up old coat hanger piece and I put it into the spark plug hole like this until it bottomed out against the piston, which happens to be like almost at the top right there. So when I had it like this, I would then turn the crank with the crowbar down there and I would turn it. Well, nothing moved. Did a full rotation, nothing moved. I was like, okay, maybe that's just a dud. Maybe it's a fluke. Let's go to number 2. So I took it out, went to number 2. And when I got it down in the spark plug hole, it is significantly deeper, but I could feel the top of the piston. That's right there, top of the piston. It's the same thing. Again, this high-tech tester rod did not move. So we've got a problem. what I think has happened is that the front of the crank snapped off, and that's what's turning. Or the key, like the woodruff key, snapped off, and that's why the pulley is spinning but not the crank itself. So we're basically dead in the water because I don't really have a tool to pull that out. It's not like a typical harmonic balancer. You've got to have a certain like adapter type thing. But let me sit on it a little more, because if we did just snap off the key, which I mean would make sense, maybe we can just tap off the pulley. I don't know. It's pressed on, and I really don't think we're going to get that off. And even if we do get the pulley off, are we going to put another key in and then keep trying and snap another key and do it all over again? Probably not, let's be honest. And I think that's, I don't know. It's like I want to quit on it just because we know it's solid. Stuck solid. I don't know. I think I'm gonna have to sleep on it. It's been a long day. I've been out here basically all day. Let me sleep on it. Maybe we should pull the head. That's really our other option here. Because even if it's just the key that's snapped off, it'll still run. The balancer just won't be secured perfectly straight. But we're not going to be running it for very long anyway, even if we get to that point. So I think I'll need to sit on it, sleep on it, and see what our game plan is. Look at pulling the head on this thing, and then taking a look from there. Because I'm sure some direct force on top of the piston would really help. Some, you know, with like a 2x4 and a good hammer, just putting some shock to the pistons and really break that stuff down. Plus it lets the ATF and mist oil sit overnight to really soak in, so maybe that'll help. I don't know. Pretty defeated right now after the high of getting it to turn, and now we're back down in the ditch. So let me sleep on it, and we'll come back tomorrow. For real this time. We'll really be done for tonight.
The next day.
Well, good morning. As you can hear in the background, the heater is going because it's about 30 degrees out here. So we're trying to warm up the garage a little bit so we can get working again. But we slept on it. And I think I am more stubborn than this engine. So I think today we are going to pull off the head and see if we can try and salvage the head gasket in the process. But I want to take the head off and see if we can get these pistons to move, whether we have to shave down like a 4x4 or a 2x4, something like that, and kind of start manually moving these pistons to get them to go. We may even take, I don't know, a dingle ball, or I think I've got one of those spring-loaded stone hone things. Try and clean up the cylinders a little bit and see if that'll help not fight so much, and see if we can get that thing to move. But again, after sharing the key last night on the crank, we've kind of eliminated the assistance of the crankshaft pulley to help us turn this thing. So let's just jump right into it. It's about noon time already, so we're gonna get a late start here. But let's start with the valve covers, see what the valve train looks like, and then we'll move on into removing all the head bolts. And I really, really, really hope that we don't break any. So we're gonna have the propane heat out and spray and heat, and really hope that we can get those out. So let's jump in here. It's gonna be a little bit of funky angle just because the garage door is shut. I'm trying to keep it warm in here.
Find a clip or device named garage door.
Alexa, I wasn't talking to you.
Sorry, I thought I heard my name.
Smart devices, they say. Well, that definitely did not go as planned. That thing twisted and turned, but we already committed, so we just had to go for it. But it's out, and it's on the ground. We'll take a look at the head in a second, but let's look at inside the engine, which is what we've been fighting this whole time here. Well, I don't see anything that's like screaming at me immediately as to what's holding this thing up. There's a lot of debris down in there. Well, all right. I think our best course of action right now is to, well, I don't think these were doing much cooling, and this head gasket is really old. But I think what we'll do is clean out some of these. Well, we probably need to do number 1 because it's the highest up. So if we start hitting down on the tallest one, it would give us the best chance to get stuff moving. But they're still all holding fluid for the most part, which tells me the rings are holding at least halfway decent. So let me see if I can find something that'll fit into this that we can, you know, tap on and see if we can get this thing to start moving. But I'm actually kind of glad not a whole lot oozed out. But the other thing is these are pretty low. I remember filling those up pretty good, so maybe they did see by the rings. But let's grab something and see if we can start getting some movement out of this. It is much later and getting much colder, but as you can see, it's starting to get dark outside. We have been fighting this thing for probably 5 hours at this point. We've added heat to it, you know, the propane torch. We've added more lubrication to it, some PB blast. We took out all the ATF and mystery oil and started hammering it down with a piece of wood. It's even gotten to the point where underneath here I've got, I've gotten a piece of wood strapped down to apply pressure on the number 6 there, which according to the firing order, number 1 should then be on the way up, right? Because it's 1 5 3 6 3 6, then 2 4, 1 5, yeah, 3 6 2 4. So anyway, applying pressure on number 6 back there should start forcing that down, which means that number 1 should be coming up because it's the next one in order. It starts over again on number 1. Okay, I'm not crazy. I'm just a little delusional from fighting this damn engine all day. But we're gonna leave that on there. Our last resort is inside of all the cylinders. You can see there's kind of like a greenish liquid, and that is some of this evaporust stuff. It's supposed to eat away rust and stuff like that and restore it back to bare metal. Yeah, we'll see about that one. So we'll see how well that does in it. Soaked them all pretty good to where they've gotten, you know, enough to cover basically the whole head of the piston, besides a little raised part on the other side there. But we'll see how that does. I'm supposed to do this in like 65-degree weather or better according to the instructions, but you know, we only do so much. So we'll see how it goes. So we're gonna let this sit overnight. So with this sitting overnight, this is probably gonna be, tomorrow will be the last shot to try and get this thing to move. We've rocked it back and forth. We drug it with the bus. We sheared off the key on the front of the crank. I mean, we have just done almost everything. So we're gonna let this sit overnight for 24 hours, go work again tomorrow. So after work, we'll come give it a shot. We'll take out all that evaporust to make sure everything is removed out, and then we'll use that wood and like a dead blow and see if we can really get it to turn. Because if it won't turn, then we're out of luck. But again, this thing's been off the road since '76, so it's no surprise that it's stuck. Anyway, we're gonna let this sit, go inside and warm up, and we'll see how it goes tomorrow. Final try here, we'll see.
Several days later.
Alright, so it's actually been several days since that last clip when we put the, I think it was the evaporust we put in there, just let it sit, see what was going to happen. But we've had several extremely rainy days, so it's been really tough to kind of get out here. But throughout those days, I've been coming out and checking on it and, you know, giving it some taps and stuff, and just absolutely nothing is happening. So we switched to like vinegar, and then we went back to ATF and mystery oil, let that sit, and so it's been pretty much all together, I want to say close to a week. Basically, we've been trying to get this thing to move, and we have gotten nowhere. So I came out here today because it's finally a nice, decent day out here, and we started making some progress on this. So I was able to come out, and you can see I've got a mess of things on the ground, and we're gonna go through all that. But what I've been doing, let me kind of show you what we're doing here, is I've gotten a 2-inch strap, super heavy duty, with a 4x4 block, and I shaved it down to be the width or the diameter of the cylinder. So I've got it back there over on number 5. One side is wrapped around the starter, other side around the steering column, and I have got that thing super tight. I mean, I cannot click that anymore. I put my full body weight into it, and that is as tight as it's going to get. And we are in neutral. I just want to make sure we know that. But even with that, nothing has changed. So we've cleaned the cylinders, we've picked out the rust around the edges with a pick. We've done absolutely everything with heat and this and more heat and more soaking, and just gotten nowhere. So today I decided, you know what, we're just going to go for it. We're going to take out this oil pan and see what the heck is going on, because maybe there's something bigger going on. Maybe the crankshaft is snapped, or who knows. So we're going to go underneath. I'm going to kind of show you what we're looking at, and you'll see why we're going to call it quits here. So as we go underneath the truck, we've pulled off a lot of stuff. We've got our sump off, well, at least the pickup part. One of the gears of our oil sender oil thingy that sucks up the oil and sends it up is what that is. And the tube that connects them. And we've got all sorts of mess, but the oil pan is off. And, oh, did my light die? No, okay. But we did end up getting a few of the caps off, which is great, but the crank looks fantastic. I mean, it's all there. I have all the hardware, even though some are missing, I popped them out. But everything is here, so I don't understand why it's so stuck. But number one, I was able to push up on and actually get that one to move. So I thought, okay, number one is good. We made progress. Let's go to number 2. We go to number 2, and it's not moving at all. I got up there with the air hammer with a super long extension on there to go push actually on the very bottom, well, which is the bottom side of the piston, but the very top up there, and it's not even moving. And I don't really want to do this surface because it will damage the point where the connection is, and I don't want to do that. So I was like, okay, maybe that's our tough cylinder. Let's go to number 3. Go to number 3. Same exact story. I can't get this thing to go. But when you kind of look up there, look at the edge of the cylinder there, it's like rusted on the very edge. So it's like it's rusted on the bottom where it's coming past the block, but also on the top side. So even with an air hammer, with a 2-pound hammer, anything I can do, I cannot get this to go up. Meantime, that strap is still holding number 5 down on the top side, and we haven't moved at all still. So this thing is just completely locked up, and I cannot get it out. So even with that, I'm just gonna call it quits. I've been fighting this thing for almost a week, and we have a lot of opportunity to start making other progress. I don't even want to keep this straight 6 in it, and we're definitely not gonna keep that old school 300 transmission in it either. I don't want to have any of that. This is all gonna get ripped out anyway. So I really just wanted to get this running, possibly, but it's just not going to happen. And I'm really, really disappointed, but also I really shouldn't be surprised. Last registered in '76, so it's been almost 50 years. I mean, why would this thing be free? And if it was, that'd be kind of a miracle. When we saw the cylinder head, the exhaust is just completely missing, so all that moisture just over time had gone up into the bottom of that where it was open and through the valves into the cylinders and just completely locked it up. It's just way too solid. So unfortunately, I think this engine and this opportunity to get this thing running is just going to be a dud. It was really a good try, but just not going to happen on this one. You know, we could set it off to the side and let it sit for months with stuff in it, but I mean, we're not going to keep it. We're going to be swapping this thing out anyway. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that, for what we're going to put in it. I'm not going to tell you what we're putting in it, but I want you to put some guesses down in the description for what you think we should put in this thing. But with that, I think that's going to be the end of this episode. It's been a lot of hard work. Really been getting super dirty and nasty and gross and tearing up all my clothes, but hey, it's all for the fun of it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. Subscribing really, really helps the channel, so please make sure you do that. Only about 25% of the people that watch the channel are subscribed, so if you're not, you should. And hit that bell too. That way you always know when new content comes out. It really helps me, it really helps the channel, so we can keep working on these kinds of cars and bringing you free content here on YouTube. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And until next time, we'll see ya.